So we started from in November, I guess.
Exactly
Right?
here.
Yeah. The first meetup was on like in GeekyAnts office only, and we are start getting back to the same venue after like 5 meetups now, finally. And we are super excited for all the talks that we are having today. But how many of you know what React Play is? Have you like Googled? Has anyone Googled about React Play or what exactly it is? You got here from Meetup.com. That's it, right? Have you tried searching about? No. Did you saw our Instagram page or something? No. Okay, fine. So I guess Tapas will introduce to what React Play is. It's not just a community started on Meetup.com. We have been on the internet since like last 1 or 2 years now. Yeah. So Tapas is the founder of React Play, and he'll be like speaking about how he started, why he started, the initiative, and how we finally ended up doing offline meetups.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Yeah.
I won't take much time. So yeah, as he told, like it's a community that started with the vision of open source almost like 2 years back, I think now. So I started this community only to teach React to people a couple of years back, and then to give people good amount of practice when they are building React projects. And one way of doing that is like build a community, be on Discord or Slack somewhere, and then you come up with your own problem, and the community kind of solve the problem that you're coming up with. So that was the vision. It kind of went really well when we got started, and that's the time we did lot of initiatives online, like the talks, hackathons, multiple hackathons, and all the stuff. So the community still exists on Discord. So if you are interested, you can always check it out. You can catch hold of Pritesh or me, like how to get you introduced to the community, and so that if you're interested, you not only kind of learn and share from that, you also can take part in open source contribution. That's one of the things that as a developer we look out for, and there are a lot of advices around. So once you really come to open source world, you know like what is the right advice to take, right? Once you do the things by yourself. So that will be an opportunity, and we'll be very glad if you want to come and take any initiatives from there, or just learn from it, or just share, or be part of doing helping us in any of this meetup. That also perfectly fine. So it was like towards the end of last year when we were realizing like we have to kind of step up from the online space and let's go to offline and start doing the meetup and things like that. And then November we got started. So every meetup we got very good response. This meetup it is like pretty low. I can understand because there are a lot of other meetups going on in this week, and we were a bit late to announce the venue and all other stuff. So that's fine. I'm looking forward to the talks that we have today. There are 5 excellent talks, excellent speakers that they will be speaking. So I hope that you enjoy. And at the end of it is like, I think the best takeaway that you can take from this meetup is the connections that we establish here. And if you feel that we are the people that can get connected and stay connected after this, we would be really, really happy, to help each other in growing our career and path. So with that, I'll let Pritesh to kind of take it forward and introduce the first speaker.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So with that, we'll start our meetup, and the first speaker is Wadad Parker, and he'll be speaking on the Chronicles, of course.
Yes, hello. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ad Parker, and today we are here to speak about Chronicles of Course. Okay, course. Yes. Give me a clap if you know what is course. No, 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 like not for me. Like, give me a clap if you know what is course. Give me a clap if you don't know what is course. Give me a clap if you have spent hours and hours debugging course. And finally, give me a clap when you ask your backend engineer that the API is having course error. He sends you back a Postman screenshot. That Postman is working. Nice, nice, nice. So basically, right. So have you seen this error screen? Yeah, that's my own honest reaction. Whenever I see this error screen, that's a part of inside of me dies actually. So But the thing is that course is not like too difficult, and it's just one simple concept that we have to understand about course. And much of us in the beginner, we don't know that why is the error or what is causing the error. But if you read the console statement, right, you will just understand that uh, it has been blocked by course policy. No access control allow origin header is present in the requested resource. This statement, this is the only reason why course error happens. And today, my aim is that you go out of this talk with completely understanding how course how course error we have avoid. Okay, so like what is course? So course origin is like cross origin resource sharing. Cross origin means is that from one browser URL to another browser URL, or from one browser URL to, let's say, another subdomain or another HTTP protocol. And right, and you just have to take care of two HTTP headers when you are sending back a course request. These are access control allow origin and access control allow conditions if you are working with cookies. Okay. So earlier, what happened? Earlier, back in the 90s, right? Uh, browser, it was designed such a way that only same resources, like same origin, can share resources with each other. So if a browser, right, send a request to, you know, if you have wadadparker.com, and if you send a request to wadadparker.com/API/info, then as the same origin policy, it will not give you any course error. Like how we have in the Next.js, right? We send Next.js API request to the /API route. So it's a part of the same URL or same resource. That's why it will not give you any course error. But now the problem comes when you like have another browser. We have another origin. What constitutes as an another origin? It may be like another URL. It's like https://zoro.com, or else we have like a subdomain, wadadparker.com.dev. Like if you have another subdomain, and also another HTTP protocol. It's HTTP, not HTTPS. And finally, like even if you have yeah, it's like, yeah. And finally, if you have another port, let's say 3083 to 3087, it still give you an error. At that time, if you try to access the resource or access the get API from the server, it will give you a course error, because you can see that we have an access control allow origin http wadadparker.com. Okay, so like just see this part. All right, so we have a browser. The browser, the URL is wadad.com. Fine. Now we have a we call a API to the server. The request method is get. The URL is same. Now the request URL is the API/wallet, and we now send the request headers. The request header is browser originated. So the origin is actually, let's say, like it's http www.example.com, and we are sending cookie session, right? So what happens is that access allow, if you send this credential back, right, access control allow credentials true. So anytime that you send any API with cookies, you need to send this header. If you do not send this header, it will block the request. Now why it will block the request? Because if you blindly allow any cookie to get through your request or your resource, then you are more prone to attacks, right? Cross-site scripting error attack, or like a resource forgery attacks. You are prone to those attacks. So you cannot unnecessarily pass on cookies to your request. If you want to specify any cookie, you need to give this allow header. And also, right, you need to mention the origin over here. If origin matches, then only the browser will let you pass the resource. For example, like the API will execute, but if the browser does not get this header back, this specific header, then what will do? It will like delete your body. The response comes with some body, it will delete it. That's what course error is actually. Yeah, now you don't have a body, and that's why you get a course error. And now, like, this is the very big thing. Like whenever the API is working, API works in the, like, API doesn't work in the browser, but it works in the Postman. And this is a screenshot of, like, I'm texting my friend over. He was a backend engineer, and he's saying that the API is working in Postman, but not in the browser. The reason is because the CORS is a process, or like a policy for browsers. Postman is not a browser; it's more like a proxy server. So if you call an API from a server, it will never give you a CORS error, right? It will only give you a cursor if you're calling through another browser, right? Okay. So let me just Now here, like I have made two get request over here, right? So one is going to give you access control allow. So if you see over here, right, the headers, right, the headers, we make a API request to this, and we see that the response, it is sending back some response headers, and the response header is like content type is allowed, or method is get, and access control origin all. So this is like some small code snippet that I have written. So if you see the slash get slash info route, right? Is it fine? Is it fine? Yeah. Okay. So is it fine now? Right. I'll just quickly explain you the code. The code is that we have an express, and I'm not using this. You might be using this for all your express libraries, but this is just a wrapper actually. And my aim was that you should understand what happens internally when you use this cost library. So let's say we have a get API, right? And the get API is like slash info slash private. Over here, I have sent like an HTTP like wadad.com. The origin is set over here. The origin shall only be wadad.com. If any other website, let's say wadadparker.com, and any other subdomain of mine, wadad.com.parker, anything, it will give a CORS error, because only this wadad.com can access the get request. And also we have written the access control allow methods. What all methods are allowed? Is it get, post, delete, etc. And also what all headers are allowed. Maybe like when you send a request, right? You send a request of content type application.json. So that will matter. Like you have to allow the header, then only it will let you have the request pass on. Then also now next over here, like we have like slash info. Now slash info is basically I have set this to star. Star basically means that allow any origin that you want. For the sake of the demo, I have kept it as star, but on production you should never keep it as star. Why? Because then now your APIs can be accessed by any other website. So like maybe I worked hard on those APIs. Anybody will just go and make a clone of your website and have like same front end, same CSS, everything. And now on the back end, he may call your APIs, and then it will be showing your API, your resources. So you are more prone to these attacks. This is also called CSRF, right? Cross source resource forgery attacks. You are more prone to these attacks when you put it on star. A lot of the developers, like they go like they don't understand that why causes is happening. They see that okay, by keeping a star, I'll resolve it, and this is how they resolve it. And this is not actually the correct way to resolve it. Right, okay. So in the second request, right, this is get request to not allowed URL. Now over here, see, you can see that this is like okay, another right. Okay, so this is your like favorite error, and it will come because like this is has a value wadad.com that is not equal to the supplied origin, and that's why it gives you a CORS error. As you can see that this has a star, it allows this has wadad.com, but this is chronicles of CORS. That's why it gives a CORS error. So okay, so now do you understand like why CORS error happen? Is because the origin is not same. Very simple. And like if the origin is not same, then it's not on you, it's on the like the one who has the control of the server to set the proper origin in the headers. Now we have a post request also, right? Okay, so 200 fetch. Okay, so along whenever you send a post request, right, you have something called as the pre-file request. Now like now I'll show you like what is a pre-file request, right? So you can just read the slide over here. Pre-flight requests are used in CORS for any core origin request that is considered non-simple. A non-simple request is one that meets any of the following conditions. It uses methods other than get, head, or post, uses custom headers other than those considered simple headers like content type, and sends request with a content type other than application next www.form or anything. So like basically when you say content type application.json is considered non-simple request. if you use any other content type, let's say text/plain, it will be a simple request. So when these are happening, right, whenever you send a delete request or a put request, right, the browser will go ahead and send another an additional pre-flight request on an options call. So whenever you are making like a non-simple, let's say like a post request with some body and JSON in it, it will also send you a pre-flight request. So you need to keep in mind that you also handle pre-flight request and the post request. Okay, so like this is like a diagram, right? We have a browser over here. The browser first sends a pre-flight options request to the server. The server has to then send response headers specifically for this options request. And what all it should send? It should send like the access control allow origin header, and allow headers header, and also allow like allow the content type headers. Like so as should we allow methods. Okay, and after all this has been cleared, right? Then it actually sends the post request now. So it first sends the options request. It has to get the respective headers for that, and then it sends the successful response. Now, like we'll see in that time, right? Okay, so all right, so yeah, if you see over here, then let's see all. Yeah, okay. Let me just delete this. Fine. So in the first post request, you can see that we have a in post request is 200, okay, and we also have a pre-flight request. This is an option request. You can see over here that whenever you send two of these, we are always sending two requests, not just one post request. And in the code, right, I have implemented this such as that app.use, right, whenever like if any there is a request method is options, then what I'm doing is that I'm setting the access control allow origin to star, so that any origin can access this for the demo purpose. And also I'm telling that with all methods can access this and what all headers are allowed to be present inside the request. So this is being handled by over here, and then after it's being handled, the post request is getting cleared. Now we have the second post request. Okay, so notice in this one, right, we have an error. This is your favorite course error over here. Like we'll understand that why this error happening. First, you can see that options request is 200. Okay, means that options has been cleared. If pre-flight is cleared, then why is that it is getting error in the post request? Post request is still the course error, because like now comes the moment of truth, right? Because when you send course, right, just resolving the pre-flight request is not done. You have to also send the course headers in the post request as well. So like we have the post info, right? We are sending access control allow origin all. But over here in the info private one, the post private one, the second post request, we are not sending any course headers. Now, when you don't send the course headers and the post request as well, it gives you a course error. Now, do you understand? Like just configuring for option request will not satisfy the condition. You have to set it both for the options request and the post request. Then only will not get any course error. Okay. Right. Now, let's go see like now there is some cause vulnerability that I discovered when making this PPT. So see, when you sending back a access control allow origin, you can only keep three options with you. Okay, you can keep like star origin, which is not good because I said that anything can access your API. Then second thing is allow origin. You specify the origin over here. That's like the common thing. And the third thing is that you can give a null value if it doesn't matches anything. Now the problem is that it forces the developers to use dynamic generation. For example, that a request comes. First you check that what is the origin of the request. Then you check whether the origin is within the types of origin that we allow, and then you send back. You dynamically set the origin, then send back. There can be problems for this, right? The first problem is error passing origin headers. Recently, I faced this problem personally in my production app, where the origin was coming none, like the request origin was not being catched or what not being sent. So this is like a problem that then your code will fail over there. Second thing is that if your logic is something that is like when the origin comes is like origin dot includes Wadad. So what happens is that a string will come. If it's like origin dot includes bank, the string will come, and then there is a malicious user who knows that this is your vulnerability, and then he sets the request as maliciousbank.com. Since this bank contains the string, it will now bypass the CORS. Or it says it's a subdomain, right? It's a bank.com.malicious.com. Subdomains in and itself will not bypass CORS. But if you are getting a string of the origin and then you're saying that if this dot includes this origin, then it will bypass the CORS. And also some of the developers, for testing purpose, they whitelist the null value. When whitelisting the null value, right, what will happen is that the attacker might send null as origin, will get null back as response, and his request will be fulfilled. Okay, so I think that if whenever you see this error, is just simply that you are not passing the correct access control headers in the response. That's all. That's all the course is all about. It's always has been like that. So like, do you have any questions? Yes. Mobile app. So mobile app, if you consider, right, browser has a separate client server relationship. For mobile app, I think there are like separate APIs or protection considering this. If you are using PWS, then it will still use CORS, because at the backend it still use JavaScript. And mobile, right, not all of them is like a browser entity, or not all of them uses how do I say, like a browser engine or JavaScript at the backend, right? So like the mobile APIs are protected some other way, maybe some like tokenization or API keys and some other ways, right? Okay, like any other questions? Fine. Actually, at this point, I would have ended my talk, but I have a small post-credit scenes for you. So like, hope you enjoyed. Like, we have an extensions over here. This is allow course. So there are like hundreds of extensions on the Chrome that when you click on it, it allows you to bypass the course. So just check over here. Right now, this is the request to not allowed URL, and it allows. This is the request to allowed, not allowed. It also allows, because you can see that the request, right, it has been like it says the access control origin is this, so it already automatically it fills you all the headers over it. It fills all the star headers. So basically that your course is not at all like fully secure. Don't be dependent on course, that when I have enabled course, now it has been protecting my website. You have to depend on other methods such as token authentication, authorization, and etc. You have to be very careful with web security, and attackers like can bypass the course, right? So yeah, that's all about my talk. Thank you very much.
Wonderful talk. Is this the first time you're doing?
Yeah, it's first time. Yeah.
Give it a big round of applause for him. This is because the way he interacted, right? The way he started. It's not something that a first-time speaker does usually. But yeah, thank you so much. For the next talk, we have Dinesh Reddy. Please give it a round of applause for him. And he'll be talking about Next.js server client component, why, what, and when. How many of you like are well aware of Next.js and all the hydration errors that it gives usually? Next.js fans, we have Next.js, biggest Next.js fan over here. Awesome. Okay, over to you. Yep.
Hello. Yeah. Just a second. Yes. Hi. Hi, everyone. So, my name is Dinesh. I'll be your guide in this journey of React versus Next.js. So, basically, this is my second talk which I'm giving. I'm very excited, and I see the house is also full. Okay. So, I like housefuls actually. It's very excitement for me. It gives, when the audience are full, when everybody is watching me, what I'm going to deliver, everybody is very much excited to learn something new today. It gives me very much happy actually. So that is the reason I prefer giving these talks. So when audience here, learn something from me, or I am the reason for them to make concepts refresh. So it would be very much great feeling, right? So today I will be talking about React versus Next.js. So we have got some new powers in Next.js, right? Server components, pre-rendering, client-side rendering, all these new powers which Next.js has come up. I'll just discuss those powers, how it is different from React, and how it is, you know, very much outstanding from the concepts of React. So I decided to give this talk in different way. Instead of going through PPTs and reading out the PPTs, I thought of doing it in different way. So what I'll do now, I'll narrate you a story between two kings, King React and King Next.js, in which there will be over a debate of discussing their powers. Cool. So I'll be going through the story and I'll explaining you all the concepts which React and Next.js have. Okay. So as usual, every story starts up with once upon a time. So in the world of web development, once upon a time, or now also, there is a king React exists. Okay, he has powers in which he stand out in the world of web development compared to other kings like Angular and Vue.js. So React has powers such as client-side rendering, lightweight library, reusable components in which you can make to make the website more interactive and easy to write the code, easy to read the code instead of using plain JavaScript to create the website. So React made easy to code, easy to write the code, easy to read the code, and also easy to develop the application, right? We can use the same component. Doesn't matter how many web pages we have, we can use the one component whatever we have created in the multiple web pages. So this is the powers of React. So once upon a time, King React, got to know that there is another king called Next.js has come up with more beautiful powers, in which people in the world of web development started using his powers instead of React. They are using React powers also, but with that powers, people in the world of web development started using the powers of King Next.js. And React is so surprised. The King React is so surprised. What is the powers you have in which people are, started using his with my powers? What powers makes different from my powers? He was like very much surprised. And one day he called the king next to his kingdom. The soldiers went and delivered the message to the king Next.js. The king Next.js arrives. Here is the thing here. The moment the king React saw the next king, he was shocked. He was completely shocked. He didn't expect to see that person. And why he was shocked is the twist of the story. You have to listen at the end. There is a twist actually. Why the king React was shocked when you have seen the king next. Okay? So king next has arrived to the kingdom with all his powers. Done. The king React was surprised to see, obviously, and shocked. And the king started, what are your powers? What makes different from my powers? I do also have the same powers. I do also render the HTML, which you do. What makes you different? React King React started questioning the Next.js. And the Next.js was, bro, it's a modern story actually. So Next.js is like, bro, yes. So I do have certain powers, Next.js powers, in which I take something which you do on client side, I do the same thing on the server side. Simple thing. Whatever you do on the client side, I just take that behavior to the server side because server is a constant. Client side browsers, all these are variables actually. If we have a server, it's a constant because everything we can have one server, and client, many people have many different laptops, many different browsers, many different internet speed. It does varies if you do something on client side because it's not same for all of us, right? But if you do the same performance and same operations on the server side, It is constant for everyone, right? So that is the reason the King Next.js decided to take the thing which is happening on the client side to the server side. Cool? Yes. So the King Next.js is describing the React King. So this is what I am doing now. Whatever you do on the client side, I'll do on the server side. Great. And the King React asks Next.js to demonstrate or tell me more about your powers. And the King Next.js starts with, I do have many powers. Server-side rendering is not just one thing I do. I do have powers such as pre-rendering, server-side rendering, file-based routing, templates. I do have many other things. But today in this summit, I'll demonstrate about what is server components, how different it is from client components, what is the useful if you change your components or if you use both server and client components in your application. Next.js was so much happy to describe his powers in front of the great king React. Okay, so these are the powers of React actually. It's the component-based architecture, virtual DOM, one-way data binding, and React is also a single-page application in which Next.js is a multi-page application, right? And these are the powers of the King Next. Server-side components, dynamic streaming, built-in optimization, many other powers are there for the King Next.js. But these are the main powers. And today I will demonstrate about the power called server-side components. Yes. So let's discuss about the thing, before the next king doesn't have any powers. Let's just go how the powers of React is working. Okay, how the powers of React is working. So what is the React powers? Rendering the HTML page at client side. Done. How does this happen? So whenever you load your React project, you receive a HTML page from the server. React server, you receive a HTML page and JavaScript bundles of files. After you receive an empty HTML page actually. Empty HTML page with JavaScript files at the client side. Then the browser takes the JavaScript files, executes the code, and adds your component one by one to your HTML page. Okay? And how does this React do? React creates a virtual DOM, and creating that virtual DOM, React then updates the real DOM. If you change anything, if you do any operations on your web page, React generates one more virtual DOM, compares it with previous virtual DOM, whatever the difference it finds out, then updates it in the real DOM. Instead of rendering again the whole DOM again, the difference, whatever it is there from the previous rendered and this rendered virtual DOM, that difference is now updated in the real DOM. So this is the general way the React powers are working. Fine. So what is the issue here? Why people started using Next King powers when this is working fine? What is the problem here? People are, the king is also wondered, is there something wrong in my powers? And the Next.js was like, yes, you do have some flaw in your power. The thing is, React server is sending an empty HTML page, right? Empty HTML page which doesn't have anything. So it is very bad for SEO, search engine optimization. I'll tell you why. So whenever you created a website or web page and you hosted it in the Google servers. So to come to stand out your website in the top results, there are some bots and web crawlers. What they do, whenever you search something, the web crawlers identify the related web pages according to your search results. And how these web crawlers identify the related information, whatever you have searched, to the HTML, whatever it sees. So initially, when there is empty HTML page you are received from the server, web crawlers doesn't see anything. Web crawlers doesn't know what is this HTML page. That is the reason. After some time, after your JavaScript code got executed, then you can see something on the HTML page, right? So this is the reason and the main problem. This is the main problem, and there are many other problems also. But this is the main problem actually. You don't see anything. The content is blank. It has to take some time to execute the JavaScript files. If the internet is slow for some people, the laptop processor is slow, this will take some time to load the big project, big JavaScript files, right? So to overcome this thing, King React, I've come with one more solution. I've come with a solution called server-side rendering. So what do I do here? Instead of sending the empty HTML page, I'll generate the content at server side, then I'll send you the HTML page. So browser for it's easy to parse the HTML and display the content. It's easy for browser, right? HTML page, simple. Executing JavaScript and adding it to the HTML page, it takes some time. But directly showing the HTML page with the content of information, it's easy for the browser. So the next powers tells that I'll render something at the server itself and I'll send you the HTML page to the client side. Okay. How does this happen? How does server generates the HTML? And how does React, matches with the server thing? And how does the client side component, server side components? You can't run everything on server, right? There are some dependencies in which you can able to execute that code at your browser level, right? Some APIs is required to execute your code. So we have to divide our web page into parts. Something you can render it on server, which doesn't require any browser APIs or client side options. Something which can render at client side, which requires the browser APIs. So you have to divide your project, or the whole web page. Have to divide the components and write down what the components can go into server and what are the components which you can render at client side, right? Make your website, this is what I can render it on server. This has to go on client. Write down the steps. Be ready with whatever components you want to push to the server, right? So now your project is ready. You have created client components and you have created server components. At the build time, whenever you host the application on the next server, Next.js build your application, right? So how does this happen? How does Next.js, create an HTML page? So Next.js also uses the React library to create the virtual DOM. This thing will happen at server side. Next.js will also use React library to create the virtual DOM. The same way, whatever happening at the client side is now happening at the server side. So the Next.js now creates a virtual DOM using the React library. Done. And in that virtual DOM, using that virtual DOM, it also creates a RSC payload. Fine. I'll tell you about what is an RSC payload. This RSC payload is generated by the next king, the power of next king. And this will be sent to the client side. Fine. The virtual DOM is Next.js is using the virtual DOM and also generated an RSC payload, which contains also the reference of client side component. As soon as the Next.js sees a project file, it pre-renders the server components. It doesn't run the client components. It just add a reference so that the client would know in this part, it's your job to take the reference and execute your client component. My part is done. I have executed my code. This is the reference where you can able to add the client side component, right? So this is the thing. So the server generates the virtual DOM created in a static HTML page, and also it adds some reference of the client components. All this reference and virtual DOM, which helps client to have match with the server. Everything is included in this RSC payload. Great. Yes. But what does this RSC payload contains? As I've told you, the actual HTML output generated by server-side rendering of the React server components. Placeholders, markers indicating where client-side component has to be fit inside the server components or inside your application of code. If you see this thing, I don't know whether I can zoom this or not. If you see this thing, this is actually a static client component. Static client component, which I have received the HTML page, which I received from the server. Okay, a static component I have created. Simple thing, no JavaScript, nothing at all. Static component I have created. I have pushed it to the next server. The next says returns me this page. If you see there, even if it is a static, also you do have some JavaScript files. No, the last the yellow color highlight thing, those are JavaScript files. But a static HTML, why do you need a JavaScript file? Right? So JavaScript file doesn't only contains your code. It also contains virtual DOM, which helps client to create or have sync with the server component. Right? So if you see this modal, so React server components generates a HTML using the virtual DOM, done, and then it sends to the client side. The client uses this virtual DOM or the RSC payload and again creates another HTML page, hydrates the HTML page, whatever server has sent. After the hydration is done, the page which client has generated and server has generated, it checks whether it is matching or not. It has to match. If it is not matching, then it throws an hydration error. Yes, I'll just demonstrate you a live thing. Just a second. Okay, I don't know why this is not working. How do I go back to the browser from this PPT? Yes. Okay. Let me just check if. Great. Okay, sorry for the interruption actually. So, as I've told you, I show something on browsers, right? The hydration failure, okay? So, if you see this thing, I reload this page, you can see this red color border line, right? This I've added because the hydration failure had occurred in this thing. And if you notice this blue color box, you notice there would be change in the number actually. See? Quick second. See? Some 16 and 17, right? Why this is happening? Any ideas? Because, as I have told you, server component or the Next.js server, even if you are mentioned that component is a client component also, even after mentioning, telling this Next.js server, it is a client component, still, server pre-renders your client component at the server itself. This has been there since Next 13. This is not something new which Next.js has came up. Okay, so even after mentioning use client to your particular component, use client component, those will pre-render at server side. See, this is a client component. I have clearly added use client, but why I'm getting this hydration error? So this component is being executed at server side. At the time when it is executing, the time at server is executing is different. Again, when it is rendering on the client side, it is executing again, and the time is different. Both the HTML is not matching, and it's throwing an error. Ideally, this has to run at server side. Yes, because I have mentioned it's a client side. You should not run at the server. This is purely a client-based component. I want to show the date at that particular time when it has rendered. But here it is happening. What is happening? It is running the client component at the server side. Yes, and then again the same component is running at the client side. Two different dates, two different HTML pages, which is confusion for the browser or React to which HTML page I have to show. This throws in a hydration error, right? See this thing. So what is the solution for this thing? See, disabling SSR for client-side components. As I've told you, your client-side components will execute at server itself. We have to disable the client-side rendering, client-side execution at server side. So we have to tell server, it is a client-side component. You should not render at my place. Fine. So how do I tell server? I'll just use a state variable here. If you see this thing, is server or not. So this use effect, whatever I'm having here, this will run only at client side. This will not run at server side. So as use effect is not running, is server is always set to true. Yes, the initial variable use state. So when this return JSX function is getting executed, as it is true, you will able to see this thing, empty string will be added instead of date.now. It is not calculating the date now because it is server variable is true. Great. After, when this is, this component goes to the client side, before even client executes the date.now, does anyone know use effect runs after your component mounts, right? Obviously. So after your component mounts, it mounts with the initial state variable. So the initial state variable is true. So the client side also will show the empty variable, right? At initial payload, okay, at initial view of the page. Client will also show the empty string. A server is also showing the empty string, which is a match. Then after your component is mounted, use effect is executed, then you can see the date dot now. This happens in a fraction of seconds in which you can not able to notice this thing. This behavior of from empty to date. Great. So in this way, you can able to disable the client side, getting executed at client components getting executed at server side. Yes. So these are the powers in which Next King is demonstrating to the React King. The React was in shock. He's shocked by seeing him. Now he's shocked by seeing his powers. He's shocked, completely in shock, because React is not doing these things, right? Next is doing these things. So this is another way of disabling SSR. Here we have using the state variable, handling, logically we are telling your server don't execute this thing. Logically we are telling this thing. But if you want to disable manually, you can mention this thing, SSR equal to false. Server side rendering, which is false, so that Next.js doesn't execute your client component. Fine. Server components as children of client components. So the King React has come up with a doubt. After seeing all the Next.js powers, the King has came up with a doubt that saying, let's assume I'm building a to-do application in which I'm using Redux tool. Okay, Redux for state management. So in Redux case, you have to wrap your whole component in the Redux wrapper, right? Whole of your web application, you have to wrap inside the Redux state. But the thing is here, Redux uses contest API inside this thing, which is a browser dependency, which is a client-side dependency, right? So you have to make the whole component as a use client now. It doesn't make any sense, right? Because you're wrapping your whole application inside the a Redux thing, and you're making that use client because it is using a contest API. Yes or no? And if you do this thing, it acts as a client component. You're not segregating your components into client side and server side. So React came up with this thing. How do you do this thing? How do you handle this thing? And the Next.js is like, I can just pass server components as a children to the client component. I'll pass server component as a children to the client component. So what I'll do now here, I'll create a client component. I'll tell client component, you just receive a children. I'll just tell client component, you just receive a children. It doesn't matter where this children component is getting executed, either it's a server side or client side. Fine. So for the Redux wrapper, I'll tell you'll get a children, okay, by passing props. So this children file, obviously the component whichever you have, you'll write in separate file and you pass them it as a props, right, to the client component which you have. So this children component, you make it as a server component and you pass the server component as a children to the client component. Fine. So now you do have two things. You have a client component and you have a server component. The server component is going as a children to the client component. Now, when you pass these files and you build this thing at the next server, the server side component will get executed and it is ready with the content. When it is came to the browser, it it get passed as a children to the component whichever you have had it. Automatically, all these things what I have told you, checking the hydration, initial HTML page, HTML generated now, matches or not, all these things, it will perform this thing and your web page will be rendered. Great. So in this way, you can able to handle this scenario in which you have the client side component, right? So this, if you can see this thing modal, in which server component is getting passed as a children to the client component. Great. Yes. So before ending this thing, these are the powers which Next.js is demonstrating to the king React, right? So we are in the story, right? Yes or no? Okay, great. So here comes the twist actually. I've told you. Anyone can guess why King React was so shocked by seeing King Next? He was like, "अरे भाई तू ये क्या कर रहा है?" ऐसे shock हो गया. Does anyone know why he's shocked? And this is only a sample power of Next.js. Next.js King has many other powers: pre-rendering, partial rendering, templates, all file-based routing, excellent features. Fine, but this is the only simple feature in which the King has demonstrated. Okay, does anyone know why the King React was shocked? Why is like total surprise? Because both of these kings have worked together in the same kingdom before the React is launched. Both of these kings have worked in the same kingdom. This king has developed the powers of React, and this king has left that kingdom and started his own kingdom and created his own powers. So the founder of React and founder of Next.js were friends. They worked in the same company. This guy created the React, and this guy left over the company and started his own company, Versal, the Next.js, and he created his own powers. Yes. So thank you for everyone for patiently listening to this story. If you want to follow me over Instagram and to see what I do other than coding, you can follow me on Instagram. And if you want to see what I do on coding, you can follow me over LinkedIn. So thank you guys.
Any questions?
Yeah. Anything you missed in the story? Anything you want to add this in the story? Any powers you want to add in my story? If you know.
If you have heard the story.
And the story is copyrights actually. You cannot copy the story.
Any question related to Next.js, if you have like basic one, be waiting for next 30 seconds. If anything pops up in your mind. Yes, please.
It's mainly provide facility for SEO, right?
Yes.
So is this Next.js apps has a better SEO performance than the other apps, or how is it?
So look
Like
better
because mainly this SEO is done based on the content, right?
Yes.
Content, and
Yes.
this content comes through HTML,
Yes.
right? So how it makes the difference actually?
So see, so if you create an application or if you create a website using React library, initially you'll get an empty HTML page. Fine. After that, your JavaScript files get executed, the components get mounted on the HTML page. But the first time when browser receives this empty HTML page, the web crawlers or bots doesn't seize anything to make your page stand out in the search result. It doesn't know what is your page related to. fine, and then your content is added, but at the next time when your content is added, web crawlers are not reading it again. They just read at the initial load. It means whatever server returns at the initial time. If you create any project, just check view page source. You'll see an empty HTML page. And when you create a project with React, right click, inspect, view page source, you will see a HTML page which you received from the server. So you are receiving something, some static content which you can able to display on the browsers. So web crawlers identify. Basically, we do add a description of a website in metadata, right? So this helps web crawlers to identify what your web page is related to. So that is the reason why Next.js, helpful for SEO optimization. You get pre-content from the server itself, in which React has a empty HTML page. Then the components get added. Cool. Yes. Any other doubts? Great. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Awesome. So Next.js is also like one of my favorite frameworks. But when it comes to SEO, there are other SEO, as in like when you are building blog or something like that, you majorly use SEO for that, right? And in that case, there are other frameworks like Gatsby or Astro or something like that, which gives you superpowers like Next.js, especially for static SSG basically. You can try out those also. You can check and whatever works for you, right? All right. For next up, we have next speaker, obviously, and after that, we'll be having a break. We have some snacks for you guys. You guys are waiting for, I know. So yeah, cool. So next speaker that we have today is Shubhodeep Mukherjee, who is the director of engineering at Silq, and he will be speaking on unleashing the power of ReScript, enhancing React development with strong typing.
Hello. Hi, everyone. So I've been in this industry for almost 7 years now. Been doing web development for more than 10 years. And I've always started off with backend, right? Backend where I had types with me. And I always felt safe with it. But, you know, you have to work for your belly. So I started doing front end. I started becoming a full stack developer, and I saw the ugly side of it. I saw the untyped world of JavaScript, right? Many libraries came, many, utilities came like TypeScript and Flow, which tried its best to fix the whole type system. But in the end, what it ended up happening is it started forcing developers to write more and more code, right? And which, as we all know, we are lazy. Our first instinct is to fix by doing nothing, right? So this talk is just going to be about how I maintain my sanity while building a type system, while also writing the JavaScript that we all love. So yeah, okay. A little bit of intro about me. I'm Shubhodeep. I'm currently the director of engineering at Silq. Uh, as I said, I've been in this industry for 7 years. Not to brag, but I don't know if this should be a brag or not. Last year, I was Forbes 30 under 30 for Asia. Still left to do any other scam like the 430 under 30, but that's fine. Uh, as I said, I've majorly been a backend developer, writing front end code here and there. I love managing a team. Uh, I have one of the developers with us, and he is the front end engineer. So yeah, cool. So that's it about me. You can follow me on GitHub or Twitter. I still call it Twitter. I can't call it X. I don't know. It doesn't fit well with me. Uh, yeah. So let's go a little bit about how ReScript came to be, right? So let's go way back 1996, a year after I was born. So Camel used to be a language which was of which was of meta language dialect. I won't go too much in depth to that, but then 1996 Objective Camel came into play. This was the whole era of where object oriented programming was coming into the play, and Camel didn't want to be left behind. So they built out OCaml well enough. It was being used in different enterprises, but still, I guess during that time the adoption was not that high. Then 2016, really great team of developers built out this thing called BuckerScript. So what BuckerScript does is it takes your OCaml code and compiles it down to JavaScript, right? So 2006, web development is going crazy. So what do you need? You need JavaScript at your hand, right? So OCaml, you write OCaml, it gets compiled down to JavaScript using BuckerScript. Nice. But of course, until and unless anyone can write JavaScript, the adoption is not going to be high. That's the same problem that the creator of React faced. So the creator of React, along with the team of Facebook, open sourced ReasonML, which was you write a very similar syntax to JavaScript, which then uses BuckerScript to compile down to JavaScript, right? So well and enough, great, still very least adoption, because this was a great time for React. Like React was going crazy. It was trying to battle with Angular wherever it can, and ReasonML couldn't fit itself well with React. So they came up with another library, which is ReasonML React, and soon figured out, okay, why don't we just rebrand ourselves and call us ReScript? So ReScript then became the sole language for saying, okay, if you want to write ReasonML, why don't you choose ReScript and write React with it, right? Great. So yeah, that's the current timeline. This was the announcement came in 2020, 2022. The first public release was made for ReScript. So yeah. So let's talk about the compiler. When we say types, there can be different variants of what is a typed language. So one is a loosely typed language, which is maybe Python, or maybe at many places JavaScript, where it can understand types at runtime, right? It can infer types throughout, but only at runtime, not before understanding, before it goes to compiler, because there is no compiler involved, right? It's majorly an interpreted language. But when we want a statically typed language, we need to bring a compiler in place, which is the BuckerScript compiler. So when you write a ReScript code, you pass it through the BuckerScript compiler. It gives you JavaScript, as I said. And at this position of BuckerScript compiler, that's where the actual magic happens. And to be very honest, it's the fastest compiler I've ever seen. It's in the front end ecosystem. We have been, banging our heads towards working with Webpack, now even White. We still face the issue of waiting for 5 to 10 minutes for our whole code base, major code base, to build into something that we can pass on to the clients. Whereas BuckerScript compiler, like if this is your first load, it will take max to max 10 seconds. If this is, hot loading, you won't even realize, your browser is already refreshing. So yeah, let's jump a little bit ahead. Cool. So I'll just show you an example code of how ReScript code actually looks like. This is, if you think about it, this is plain JavaScript, apart from few sugar syntax like module and maybe some pipes at places, but this is JavaScript, right? We are all very familiar with this. Anyone who's not writing ReScript can actually just see the code and understand what's happening, right? So that's the great part about ReScript code. Anyone can easily adopt it. But now here's the bit which us, people who were coming from JavaScript background sort of found a friction point, is we started realizing there are types involved in so many places which we didn't even use. For example, rendering a string between div, you could easily pass string in React, right? You don't even need to quote it under double quotes. You can easily say, okay, div hello, div end. Why do I have to pass React.string here, right? So this is where statically typed language gives you the ability to be as verbose as possible for you to in the end have a much better experience down the line. Is you whenever we write div hello, it in the end gives out a react.element. React.string is doing exactly that. It is converting the string inside it and giving a react.element, which in the end our React library can understand, right? So now most of the heavy lifting has been removed from the runtime, and it's just plain, as verbose code as possible for our browser to understand, giving you a much faster experience as possible. So yeah. Also, if you notice the code, you won't see anywhere explicit type definition, right? I'm not saying, okay, let name be string, right? Just this is totally unlike of any kind of statically typed languages. So what is happening here? ReScript being a modern statically typed language and knowing where the pain point lies, unlike TypeScript, it will automatically infer types for you, right? It will say, okay, I think I understand that you are trying to return always string. This is a string. So whenever you actually go on to use name inside a string, it will easily let you do that. But the moment you sort of have something else returning it, let's say 2 for all the values, the name will become int, and that's where it will error out. You can't put int inside a string because it's strongly typed. So yeah, this is, and as I said, ReScript is very well made for React. So defining a React component, a functional component, is as easy as creating a module and saying react.component and use a make function, right? And these are the props that you would accept, and yeah, you written. So that's our ReScript code. Now let's see what happens when it gets passed through Buckerscript. This is the exact same code that we wrote for our ReScript compiled down to JavaScript. Like, I don't think us being JavaScript developers are very comfortable with this, output, but our browser is. A browser has been shouting to us that please give me something which I'm very comfortable with, but we have been giving it all kinds of loosely written language, loosely written syntax as possible. So this is as dumbed down for browser to understand, okay, do this, and it will do it, and it will be much faster. So as I say, while reviewing ReScript code in PRs, I really can find any optimizations to be made because Buckerscript is doing most of the optimizations. Maybe you are writing lazy code in ReScript, but it will try to identify where can it optimize and give you the most optimized code as possible. It will make you be lazy while giving the best output ever. Cool. So how strongly typed is ReScript? Unlike TypeScript, it doesn't support any. So there's no surprise undefineds that you can face. It will always force you to either give it a predicted inference or maybe define it. There are definitely explicit type definitions for ReScript, which you can always avoid by passing throughout the right kind of variables and throughout the function calls. But yeah, it won't let you say, okay, this function, this variable can be anything, right? Which also adds the predictability of while running it on the browser. Strong types. Now this is the maybe sometimes pain in the ass, but a variable can't change types throughout its run, throughout the execution. So let's go back a while. Let's try to say that I've done this for let name. Now name holds the string value. Now if this would have been JavaScript, I could have written name equals to 2. It would have let me do that, right? Name automatically is now integer. But ReScript doesn't let you do that, because the whole point of statically typed languages, it needs to be predictable and safe. And as I talked about inference being the most, the best life savior for all ReScript developers. We don't have to write much of the types. Everything is picked easily. Now here's my favorite part about ReScript, the type variants, right? This is sometimes, we know we have to attend to few logic, which we may need to have customized code written for it. Let's say in this example, I want to have account of different types of social medias, right? Now this account can hold different variables or attributes, right? So what do I do? Do I create different objects out of it, right? And say, okay, there's a object of type Instagram and object of type Facebook. Instagram has just the username. Facebook has maybe the name and some random number. But that's one way of doing it. And then when I'm going to handle it, I have to add more and more casing to it. How ReScript will let you do that is, it will say, I'm giving you this magical thing called variants. Is you can say you have a type called account, which can be either nothing, right? Or it can be of Instagram, which takes a string, right? And the third can be of Facebook, which takes a string and an int, right? And now let's use it. Now let's try to have two accounts. One is my account, which is Facebook with Josh and 26. The second is friend account, which is Instagram with Jenny, right? And that's it. I have, when I sort of hover over it, it will show me the type as account. So I have a very generic way of handling it throughout my functions, right? I don't have to pass different variants of objects just to handle it. Unlike, TypeScript, if I have to define unions and everything. I can now create a function which is get name, and I pass in the account. I do switch on types, which is mind blowing. Like I don't have to do switch on values anymore. I can do switch on types, and I can do say, okay, what if the type of the account is Facebook? Just give me the first attribute of that is, which is name. And what if it is Instagram? There's only one argument, just return me name. And what if it is none? Return me a blank string, right? So that's the beauty of it. And this is what JavaScript looks like for it. It is plain and simple as, when you read this code, you wouldn't understand what was the intention behind it. It just works, right? It optimized at places of saying, okay, whether type of account is not object, which means it's none, right? It returns you a string and then says, okay, I think I've assumed it right. Every name is on the first position. So it returns the first index, which is 0. Like, I don't think, browser will have much problem understanding this. And it does all, like, this looks ugly, so majority of time we don't look at it, and we don't send it out to our GitHub repositories. We keep it as git ignore, and we just in the end push a build while deployment. So yeah. Now type variant gives us the predictability which we want to handle. What if we add fourth variant, which is Twitter? We say there's going to be one more type of account, which is Twitter, which is going to accept string. Now, but your function has till now handles just 3 cases, which is none, Instagram, and Facebook, right? You send it out to production, it would break, right? But this is where ReScript won't let you send it out to production. It's going to block you at build time and say, you forgot to handle a possible case here for Twitter. like this is a lifesaver for most of the times, because whenever we are talking with backend, and backend gives us a great predictability with languages like GraphQL, then ReScript and GraphQL can combine each other and say, okay, whenever GraphQL is introducing a type and you have not handled for it, I'm not going to compile it, right? So at Silq, we have great checks while sending out to production. We use GraphQL, we use Relay ReScript on front end. So whenever backend is trying to make a breaking change via GraphQL, it just tries to see if with this change, can our front end code compile? And at the PR level, we know, no, your front end code will break. Why don't you go and cater to that and have a parallel PR fix for it? If this was not there, we could have sent a backend fix and our front end would be breaking. So yeah. Now to the major question. Can I start writing ReScript in prod? Do I have to have convince my team completely using ReScript? The answer is no. You can secretly start pushing out code, which is ReScript, because it is interoperable. It in the end gives you JavaScript code. So what your teammates are pushing and what you are in the end giving out is of same language nature, right? So there's no problem in having it part of your code base. And you can use third-party libraries and also the code that your teammates have written using the decorator called @external, which understands all the JavaScript code and different bindings, and it can call it JavaScript-like syntax, so you teammates won't find it much radical to adopt it. And yeah, first-hand React support. You can use @ReScript/React to start building your React components. Yeah, that was it. Any questions?
Any questions? How many of you used ReScript before? Okay, I have a question. Okay.
So I had a small question. So you showed it, right? So the language, does it kind of look like CoffeeScript or TypeScript to an extent?
Sorry?
You know CoffeeScript and TypeScript, right? So it does look like them to a given extent.
Mhm.
Yeah. So is there any relation between like these languages or any framework in common?
So ReScript is actually a compiled time language, whereas TypeScript is a transpiled language, right? So Express tries to stay true to its parent, which is JavaScript, and it tries to give sugar syntaxes around it. It says you can define interfaces, you can define different types of types, and I think now it's gone crazy of predicting, okay, what's the return value is going to be like. So yeah, that's the difference with TypeScript, whereas ReScript tries to say you can write just plain and simple JavaScript without, if you don't want to write types, don't write types, right? We will do our best to infer from it and give you the right kind of strong type, statically typed benefits. So that's it.
Yeah. Anyone? I have one question. So my question is to you is so for a company like, for example, Silk. Okay, so why is it like, how is it beneficial? So writing TypeScript is like, nowadays it's not that hard and stuff, because we can generate types from AI and stuff. And I'm not sure I haven't heard of ReScript before, but it seems like a little more effort based on the syntax that you showed, that you have to do. You can't do any also. Any is like our favorite thing, right? So why use ReScript, like, for, is it like any additional benefits? Because it takes a lot of time. It might affect the project deadline and stuff like that also. So yeah.
Yeah, so definitely there's a learning graph to ReScript, and that's, I would say that's just the starting point of it, right? But once you get familiar, ReScript starts helping you write code faster, because it is just, our editors are very supportive of how ReScript is right away throwing you errors without before you saving it, right? So it is just letting you know, okay, if you have introduced this code, I know there's another file where you have missed it out, where we could have pushed up code in pull request without fixing that out, right? So that's the only safety that we want from ReScript. And we have this internal joke of, there are 4 teams which use ReScript, 3 out of them being the ReScript team itself. So yeah.
Okay. All right. I know he's your developer, and yeah, cool, cool. We can have other chats in offline also. So give it a round of applause for Shubhodeep. I hope you learned something new because this was super new to me. I never knew that there is a syntax like this where we can write JavaScript in strict way, which is good for any production level company. So now we have a short break for networking. Keep your LinkedIn open. We know that there is a feature on top right on the search section of a LinkedIn where you can directly scan and connect. Right, just use that. Connect to as many people as you can, at least 5 to 10. Since we have a good number of people now, make connections and yeah, have a good time. After this talk, we have two more. After this break, we have two more talks, and we also have a game. And yeah, have some snacks, coffee, water. example, from Rubrik for the next talk. Give it a round of applause for him. I hope you guys enjoyed the game. Right. I hope I didn't bore you. But yeah, I had one another game, but since we don't have a time. No, no, we have the mic. It's not like that. I'm asking the type of mic you want. Yeah.
So guys, hope I'm audible. Yeah, so I'm Santosh, and here I'm gonna just talk about one of the common topics which is mostly overlooked, at least by the front-end developers. So basically, whenever it comes to security, it's mostly the back-end developers or the DevOps people, or even the IT administrators who are going to be the stakeholders, right? But yeah, like there is a good amount of work which are to be taken care by each and every front end dev. So that's what we are going to see here. And here I'm not going to like double click into each of the security topics in front end, but we'll be just looking at like the topics on the high level, and like maybe yeah, based on like you can let me know after the talk, like if I need to double click on something, we can have a chat about it, or even like I can give a separate talk on each of these topics. But the idea here is like to get to know that these are all the things that as a front end developers you need to take care from the front end security perspective. So the philosophy here is like the security for so long has been vulnerable from the server point of view, and it's high time that front end security should also be like given a lot of emphasis or importance actually. So if it's not working, it's working. Yeah, yeah. I don't think it's working. Actually. Is it working? Okay, got it. So cool. Now it's working, I believe. So basically, like what I was trying to convey is just that the philosophy around the security has to be a little bit uh, inclined towards front end, is what I feel. Like now the emphasis has to be given more towards the front end than the back end, is what I feel. Given that, like if you see a hacker mindset, right? Like these are lazy people. They don't want to do hard work, and another one is like they always touch the piece which is easy to touch or easy to break, easy to crack relatively. So if you see the servers, most of the servers are running in cloud, and the basic security setup is being provided by the cloud providers most of the times. So When it comes to security, I think now the vulnerable piece is the front end, which is running on the client. So mostly the hackers are targeting that, and coming from a security company, like we are into data security though, but most of the credential leaks or anything else which are happening in terms of security, we see a lot in the front end actually, like from your scripts, from your code, whatever the vulnerability that you leak as a web developer. So that is going to be running on a client's machine, and that is where the actual breaches happens. So that will be the starting point, the trigger, and then again, like servers will also be compromised here and there, and they are using the loopholes. But yeah, the starting piece will be front end. So like there are two things which you always need to keep it in your mind, which is like always if suppose, which I meant like uh, you always try to ensure some piece of security by doing something, some practices or something, right? So but security doesn't work that way, so you should always think about the fallback. So what if this happens? What if my security is breached? So what is going to be my fallback? So that fallback is something you should always keep ensuring, and it's like a onion mindset, I would say. Like security is like you always have to like have multiple layers, keep adding and adding and adding, and like again, so this is not something which you can think it of like return of investment kind of a thing. Like if you are building a feature, you will get returns out of it, but this is not something like that. It is like you are mitigating or removing the risk from your piece of application which you are building. So I would suggest like don't try to implement all these security features from the day one, but keep it in the mind. Try to enforce as much as possible, and like try to add more and more layers with a security plan when you are building a software. So that is something you need to keep it in the mind, and the security plan works like different for different kind of application software and so on. And block all except, so this is like first block everything, don't let anything. So the privileges should be like none initially, and then whenever there is a uh, need, then enable it. So I don't see like a application that makes sense without a RBAC in the current scenario, right? At least in the SaaS businesses. If you are building a SaaS software, role-based access control is like the basic need. You need your applications to be segregated into multiple roles, and the access based on the roles is like it's like the basic set of things which are required any software that you build. So that's these are two things that I like want you to keep it in your mind when you are building software. And like through the talk, we'll be just going through these two questions whenever we are going to like like whenever we are talking about any of the practices. So the first one is like XSS, which is pretty much like common, like everybody knew it. Like um, it happens how it happens with the syncs, like whether the sync can be present in the HTML, or the sync can be present in JavaScript also. So what I mean by sync, so sync is something like a black hole where you don't know what is going to happen there, but you still execute in your client's runtime. That's the problem with the web developers, right? Whatever the code that you write, it's going to be running on the client's environment, not in your environment, right? So though it is sandboxed, it is going to sit in a sandboxed environment called browser. The sandbox is going to have some data that you are going to store in the browser, right? Say for example, like I am a company, I have my website, the clients are going to use it. So the client are going to use it from a sandbox called browser. So what happens there, you have a lot of control over that, but there are some pieces like these things, if you leave it out, what happens is there are possibilities that something else can also run over that part of the application. So what happens there is, in that sandbox there is the data that I am providing to the user, which is also sitting there. Say for example, I'm providing him a token through which he can access my APIs, which can basically sit in the cookies, session storage, local storage, anywhere, right? So this is going to sit there, and like this data which is sitting there can be breached if you don't know, if you leave out these things. So now let's see what is these things, right? Like say, let's take example, like basic example, right? Say for example, what if Atlassian doesn't, everybody know Atlassian. So, and the basic software Jira, like which most people uses is like built by them, right? So, what if this Jira application is not taken care of this HTML syncs and XSS attacks? So Jira me there is this component, right? Like you see, if you want to write a description for any story or epic or something, so it's a CKA editor or some rich text editor they call it. That's the terminology that we use. So what this rich text editor does, like apart from a normal text input box, you can add styling to that, right? How is that happening? So maybe I can show you an example also. I'm just randomly just checking out something. See here, there is a text, there is an image that this is there, and I can make it bold, or I can increase the size, do things, right? So if you see, this is not a normal text box. I can add input also. So inputs can usually be added in an input box. But how is this happening? Internally, if you see what is being used, there is like a div with a content editable inside it. You can see that, but yeah, I can, yeah, you can still go and check. So all this rich text editor, how these work is like it has a div with the attribute called content editable true. So what it does, it will allow the user to edit the div. So internally, like you can support multiple features and things, but end of the day, it is going to give you a HTML as a output out of this input box, right? The on change function is going to give you a HTML string. And what if, let's consider I need some data from my manager's Jira, right? This is like very basic need for a employer, right? Say maybe if he's tracking something or getting the report out of it, if I need to modify anything, if given a chance, right? So what happens is like I need is auth token or some token which is going to sit in this machine as a credential. So what happens, like with this kind of a scenario, if this XSS is not taken care, so I can generate a HTML from my machine, which is like with this rich text editor only, which has something like a script tag and all these things. The HTML string is going to be having script tags. And now what happens is when he opens the Jira link, I will just like have a look at it. Have a look at the Jira. I have created a Jira. Have a look at this. I can like send it over the channel or something I can say, and then he will go click on the link and then open the Jira. So now in his machine, what happens is this will just be rendering in a div for him. Let's consider he is opening in a read-only mode or something. In that case, it's going to open in a div. So what happens there, when you put some HTML string inside a div, what happens there? When you do .html is something that you are most probably going to use. When you do that, what's going to happen? It's going to run that, but you don't have any control over it. As a company, you are going to leak your data. It's your users data, like the manager who is sitting there, his data. But end of the day, the data breach is happening in my company, which I don't want to do, right? This is like a basic example of HTML sync, and JavaScript sync can happen through this eval. So I don't know how many of you know eval. Like this eval is like a function where you put in a JavaScript string and then it will start executing your string. So how to prevent this, like that's like the major question, right? So there is something called like this is the same nonsense I was talking till now. So whenever you are writing code, like go through a peer review. That is pretty much very important, I would say. Like so the static code analysis, or use some tools like which can actually go through the code and then check out if you are using a eval, or even in React, right? If you use ESLint or something, it wouldn't allow you to use this function or this prop called set dangerously in an HTML. So these kind of things can help you, like static code analysis. ESLint is a static code analyzer. So use something of that sort. Use maybe like Sonar cubes, which can give you code smells, something of that sort. Or most probably I will rely on my reviewer. Have a good reviewer in your company, and most of the time you are not going to leak some security bugs most of the times. So have some good reviews. That is very much important. What you can do, say for example, in this perspective, this Jira example, right? One sanitization of this logic could have helped. While rendering, I'll just sanitize the HTML string. If it has script tags, remove it. If it has on-click events, remove it. So if I'm able to do that, done. Cool. I'm out of it. And there is a library which already does everything, which is like DOM Purify. So which is already certified and like it's like used by a lot of people. It's like having more than 1 million downloads per week in NPM. Why do you want to build your own? Like consume it, and most probably bugs will also be fixed. You just need to keep upgrading your versions. That's it. So this is the first point, right? But what if it goes through the reviewers? The next one is like integrity. So SRIs is something most probably a lot of people miss. Even like this stupid Google fonts miss it. What is this integrity? So whenever you are writing a script and then transporting it to your client, right? You expect the same script to be downloaded. So what if now it's not? It's a mutual bond, right? Like it's not that the employee hates the company. Company also hates the employee sometimes. So it's like in those scenarios, what happens? They want to see like what this guy is doing in this particular site. Let's consider they are tapping your Naukri, right? This is most probable. So it's like they are trying to inject some script apart from the usual script, which is downloaded from the Naukri.com site. Okay. So Naukri has provided you some scripts, and on top of it, this guy, the company who is providing you the Wi-Fi and everything, they are injecting it. Think of that, no? In that case, should Naukri allow it? Naukri may allow it, I don't know, but ideally it shouldn't, right? So, what happens there? So, how would he be able to secure this particular scenario? As Naukri, I should not let any other script sit in my website and then run. So, how would I do it? I will use something called integrity. So, what this integrity does? So, there is an integrity attribute in HTML that you can use it for all the script tags and style tags. What this does is it creates a hash, and you need to put the integrity, like the hash in the integrity prop or the attribute. And when the file is downloaded, when the resource is downloaded, the sub resource integrity is verified by every browser, every valid browser at least, right? So this is something you need to do. And another one is CORS. Everybody know, like, don't enable CORS in your servers. Like, just don't do something like stars. Don't use wildcards. Just go enable it for your only website if you want, or like try to do like expose only when it is required. And the other one is CSP. CSP is most commonly like again overlooked. I don't know. Go check it out. Like in your applications that you're using, go check if there is a CSP headers attached. If there is like a proper sanitizing happening, go check it out in your code base. You need not wait for these things, and maybe you can get credits from your manager also for doing these things out of the box. And like you will again learn end of the day, right? So again, what I meant by CSP is like content security policies. This you can set it in the headers. You can say that I'm not adding any inline scripts. If there is any inline scripts, block it. So if the company is trying to tap your HTML and then try to inject any data, just like giving you some wild examples, just ignore everything, just take the content. So it's like if they are trying to inject anything, any attacker is trying to inject anything, make sure that you are enabling only the surface area that you are actually going to execute, or reduce the surface area. So let's consider like you are using emotion, right? Emotion or any CSS in JS. You're most probably going to use styles in the inline. But if you are not going to use it, say for example, if you are using something like Tailwind or something, most probably you are not going to use the inline styles. In that case, hide, like prohibit the inline styles. If there's going to be any inline styles coming in, don't acknowledge to it. Or how would you do it with the CSP headers? Right, there is a nice company called Dog. Actually, I recently came to know about it. So this company is actually working on some interesting project on this thing. Actually, go check out. They have a free security scanner or something. It's really good. If you are a company who are trying to add a CSP, and adding a CSP header is a big headache. I'll tell you, like, say for example your company hasn't never used CSP header at all, and now suddenly you are introducing a CSP header. You're most probably are going to get like tons of CFDs. So you need to have something like this DOM doc kind of application. Go check it out. Definitely, it's priced, but still I think it's worth it. If you need to add a CSP header on a large scale, I think this will be really useful. Do check it out. This is really nice. Yeah, and it's not a promotion. I just know the company. I just like no, that's an interesting project. That's it. Okay, so now we ensured like everything is like cool. Like, dude, like I have prohibited everything. Like I'm properly secured. But now, as I said you before, we need to apply this thing. If suppose what happens, what are the data that I'm going to leak? You never say any sensitive information in your browser. Don't bring your password. Don't bring your passphrase. Say for example, if you are encrypting, you are getting the encryption key or something. Don't bring it back to the browser at all. Tell them that it's going to sit in the database. It is sitting. If you need to change it, you need to pass in the old password. You cannot bring back the password to the browser at all. Never bring any sensitive information to the browser. Don't transport it. Don't trust this SSL. Like, meaning, what I mean by that is, yeah, obviously you need SSL everywhere, but like don't rely on that SSL only for your security. Don't bring, if there is a sensitive data, don't bring it to the browser. Okay, the next one, replace local storage with cookies. That again, people might debate, but I would suggest to go with cookies basically because like if there is a XSS attack, you can escape from that. Like if you are having it in the cookie, and then given that you are setting it to a HTTP only cookie, if you are setting it in a normal cookie, doesn't matter. Like it's anyway going to be stolen. Put it in HTTP only, and again like same site is an attribute, and you need to use same site equal to strict so that it is not passing to the other sites. The same site lags is the default, but same site strict is something that I would always like to set if I'm not using the cross site scenario. The other one is secured cookie, which will like make sure the cookie is set only through SSL connection. CSRF mostly like it's like a stupidest thing. I would say like say whenever attacker comes to know like uh, you are going to open something or your session is going to be open in a particular site. Let's consider like I am a business owner and I am opening a banking site every day 9 o'clock, and my employee would most probably know it, or the customer who is coming regularly will most probably know it, right? So if he's an attacker and he's trying to do something, right, so what he might try to do is he might send me a phishing email with a button saying like click on this button something, and if I click on that button it will take me to the banking site, do a post request. It's like get request, it will know, like say okay, he's trying to do it from some other gmail.com or something, don't do anything. Like if he is trying to do using fetch call or something, you can use cors. But if he's actually posting it in a new tab, what happens at that time? I don't even know, like the bank site is opening, but if that post request actually does some transaction, like sending some money to his bank account, it would have happened by then when I realized, right? So to avoid that scenario, like use CSRF tokens. Make sure whenever there is a post request or any request that is being loaded, this token is being sent. When this guy is actually posting it to the new tab, he might most probably not have the CSRF token and not get into that. And mostly like use this post request wisely. Don't use this post, like don't enable this post hole in your server like for random things. Post it whenever it's required, like highly required, I would say. So do that as well. And you need to do a lot of server side checks. This CSRF has a lot of server side things that needs to be taken care. But yeah, and again, this open source problem is something like which I thought of explaining it in better. Like I have already given a talk on this on a double click manner. 2 more minutes to. So double click manner. But yeah, this one is like interesting problem, right? It's not on the customer side. It's not the security vulnerability that comes on the customer side. So customer side is also there, but it's mostly on the developer environment. So basically, there is an interesting incident which happened, I think, in 2016. One of the NPM JS packages, right? So the credential for one of the packages, what I mean by credential is the credential of a owner of one of the packages got leaked in .NET, and it was available for some like very few amount of dollars. And what happened the next day? There was a obfuscated script which was replaced in this package, and we don't never care about what is there inside the package, right? We just do npm install. And what happened in turn is like lot of breaches. Whomever was using that uh, npm install without finding what is inside that package or something, everyone went into that scam. So this is like a pretty big. We are opening up the surface area, like less code, less surface area, and less security problems. More code, more surface area, more security problems. That's it. With open source in the place, you are writing ton of code. Like you are adding ton of code for your even a basic site. You know, right? Like if I want to get a basic HTML site up, it wouldn't cost me more than 10 kbs in like a normal HTML world. If you go with React, and it goes to MBs very easily. Like I'm talking, there can be optimizations which you can do, but easily this is the case. So what happens there? Like there is some security things that you need to take care. Like Snick is one interesting thing. Like say if you are using Docker images or something, whenever you are writing a Docker file, it will tell you like the images, the base images, or the images that you are actually using in your Docker file is like vulnerable or not with that version detection. Sockets.io is a nice invention actually. It goes through like you just give the package name, and then it will scan through the actual code and then tell if there is obfuscated code, how much confidence this tool has on that particular code, everything. So it's so cool. Try to use that also. NPM audit is stupid. It's like once it is detected vulnerable, and then they will add it. But at least start doing that if you are not doing it. So make sure like that you are not adding any vulnerable open source packages to your code. That's mostly it. Yeah, guys, like thank you so much. Write accessible code, code with empathy. Thank you so much. Bye.
I hope you learned enough about security today, because I never learned this much about it. And yeah, I'll give you 30 seconds if anything pops up in your mind.
Cool. Just catch up with me also. I will be here till the end of the meetup if you have any questions. Thank you.
Cool. Give it a round of applause for Santosh. All right. So now we are at the end of the meetup, and we are not like there is one talk left with. Please welcome Pratik, Pathak. We'll be speaking about how to create your own Gen AI product. Super excited about this because I don't know how the talk will be. Type C.
So, hello, how are you? Sleepy? How was the tea? So let's start with the session. Don't worry, it's the end of the day for me also. So I'm not going to delve so much into technical. I will make it easier to understand so that our brain power can process this. Okay. So first question, how many people do know me first of all? 1, 2, 3 people. Okay. So I'm Pratik Pathak. So I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. So what I do is like I train people on Microsoft technologies in simple terms. That's it. Okay. If you want to know more, you can check my GitHub or LinkedIn. There's like whole history. Okay. So let's just not sleep going into like so much detail. So let's go ahead. So in order to connect to me, you can scan this QR code or you can scan, just search on Google Pratik Pathak. Okay. So again, hi everybody. So just quick question. How many people are students here? Only few. So mostly people are like developers. I hope so. Okay. So my first question, what is ChatGPT? Anybody? Simple terms, yeah. Don't use GenAI. Yes, your friend. And and how many people have used ChatGPT? Okay. I hope everybody have used ChatGPT. Or any alternatives? Alternative to ChatGPT? Black box. Any Gemini lover? Gemini. I like Gemini because it has updated data there. And it's free. Okay. So what is ChatGPT? So in simple terms, I just say it's a person who can answer all your questions, whatever you have. Just go there, type your question. It will give you something output. If you're not satisfied, ask again and again and again and again, and you will get your desired output. It's called prompting. Okay. Next question. How do you use ChatGPT? What did you type in ChatGPT? Prompts, like what was the purpose of the prompt? Coding question. Anything else? Does anybody ask ChatGPT to give the MCQ answers? Email. If you are in corporate, then mandatory courses answers. You can try that. It works 9 out of 10 times. I always do that. Okay. Any other? Recipes. Coding questions. Debugging. Journal questions. Essay. Somebody people have used it to correct grammar. Okay. Somebody used to get some ideas. First of how to create this PPT. I also asked ChatGPT to how to create this PPT. Okay. Infinite loop. Okay. So here are some things which I asked ChatGPT throughout like, I guess 2-3 years. So I'm using ChatGPT from the release of GPT-3. I was the one of the beta testers. Okay. So I just always use for like MCQs, write an email whenever you want to send a corporate email, and generate some like snippets and ideas, generate some templates. And sometimes I just do time pass just to explore. Sometimes I ask ChatGPT to do a rap. So it's very funny. Just ask sometime like just do a rap. So it's very funny. Okay. Next question. What is GenAI? Correct. My session is over now. GenAI. Anybody? What is GenAI? Everybody uses ChatGPT, no? What ChatGPT do? Yes. So does everybody know how ChatGPT was created? So GenAI is a generative AI. We'll go in deep. Okay, so everybody knows what is generative AI. Okay, it's very hard to define. It's just like writing a prompt and it will create something for you. So just generative AI is a which type of AI is like if you are a machine learning developer. Okay, so they are like you can see there are different types of circle or you can say box. So first comes artificial intelligence. Inside that there is a machine learning. Inside that there is a deep learning, and inside that there is generative AI. Okay, so one question I'm going to ask is if else loop is a AI. I write 10 to 12 if else statement. If something happens, then do this. If something happens, then do this. If something happens, then do this. Is it a AI? It's a AI. It's a AI, but it comes in the upper layer, most upper layer. It's not a machine learning. It's not a deep learning. Okay, it's a AI. You wrote many like some. I used to write around 50, 60 if statements to be precise. Okay, it's a AI, but it's not correct because it's not using like some neural network and all. It's like the predefined statement. But again, there are like some small things you can solve using if else AI. Okay. Recently, has anybody seen this news? Amazon self checkout. You saw that. So doesn't you like Amazon has like self checkout stores in US where you can go in the around, just roam around, pick any product, just go out. It will automatically deduct your money from your account. Okay, so it released was I guess 1.9 or 2 years back. Okay, it was very popular. Like how Amazon is doing this. Okay, like just go pick anything, come out. There is no human intervention anywhere. Like no payment, nothing. It will automatically get deducted. Recently, a few weeks back, a news came in. It was not a AI. There was bunch of people from Bangalore who was doing it manually. So whenever a person enters, they just keep tracking on where he is going. Oh, he picked a pick of chips packet, 8 10 rupees. Oh, he put it back, subtract 10 rupees now. Okay, that's how they did actually. So it's now revealed. Okay, was it a AI? No, because it involves human effort. Okay, so it's a very funny story. So Amazon just released like they are like gain some AI information or they got their ML, but it's not. Still, it needs like a lot of improvement. Okay. So do you all know like there's alternatives of ChatGPT? Okay, there are so many. I actually written only 10 of them. Okay, when I was checking, there was more than 50 list. Okay, and when I checked it out, it was just a wrapper of OpenAI. So there's some OpenAI, they wrapped it around. Now it's a new ChatGPT type of version. Okay, but we only going to focus on ChatGPT, so it will be easier to understand. So there are two versions of ChatGPT: ChatGPT 3.5 and ChatGPT 4. Okay, so what is difference between ChatGPT 3.5 and 4? Correct. And yes, correct. And pricing, it's a very important factor. Pricing, one is paid, one is free. And token size, token size. Like ChatGPT 3.5 is now has like 15K token version also, but it's paid. So if you have a 4 then you can only access that. And token is also a factor. And so how will you decide you are going to use ChatGPT 3.5? Or let's say you have both subscription first of all. Okay, you have 3.5 and 4. So when are you going to use 3.5 and when you are going to use 4? We can do that with DALI. Actually, the image capability of GPT-4 is from DALI. They actually collaborated, if you know that. Okay, so in very basic layman's terms, in simple words, whenever you want to do something with code, then use ChatGPT 3.5 because it was created using code sample database. And when you want to do some like innovative, creative thinking, solving puzzles and etc., use GPT-4. Okay, so you can see there like ChatGPT 3.5 and ChatGPT 4. Okay, why there are two separate versions? Okay, the main difference is they both have a different LLM. Does anybody know what is LLM? And then what is LLM? फुल फॉर्म को हिंदी में कन्वर्ट करके वाइवा आपके जैसा. What is large language model? Any simple definition. I don't want any technical, too technical. Any English words is also fine. Like layman's terms. We all are like alsy, sleepy, tired. Hmm. It's actually way too correct, but it was way too technical. Yes, you are correct. Yeah, it's correct. Hmm. So simple terms again, English. I'm not going to go too much in detail. LLM is like a person who has all the information. It was trained on a large data set. Okay, then it created a LLM model. It was unsupervised learning, first of all, if you know that. It was unsupervised learning. They created a something LLM, okay, and then they fine-tuned it. Okay, and then they said like remove this. Like in starting, if you have chat GPT, if you ask how to create a nuclear weapon, it was giving you answers. How to create a nuclear weapon, how to create alcohol, drugs at home, anything. Nuclear fission reactions are also there in chat GPT. And then they like fine-tuned it, like remove these informations. Okay, that's how actually chat GPT works. So in short, you just get to the access to the LLM, provide the resources. Okay, remove these types of content, provide these only. Now it's called chat GPT. You understand how chat GPT was formed? They created an LLM. Actually, there were like 4 LLMs. There was 2.6, but I didn't got access to that. And there was GPT-3, then GPT 3.5 came into picture, and then GPT-4. Okay, so they just used that LLM model, created like some UI just to interact with or with some fine tuning. That's called chat GPT. Okay, so there are different types of LLMs available in the market. Okay, some of them I wrote there. There's one more popular LLM in the market now in Bangalore, known as Kannada LLM. You can search that. Okay, everybody knows Hugging Face, DALI. There's a lot of available in the market. Okay, we will talk about that this at the end. Okay, so I'm going to show only small demo. Okay, I wrote this in like yesterday. First of all, you need to go to how to create your own chat GPT. Okay, first again you need access to your LLM. Okay, how do you get access to LLM? Using APIs. Okay, if you want to get OpenAI LLMs, then you have to go through OpenAI website, pay, and then get API key. Okay, you can also do that from Azure. Okay, just go to the Azure. Please don't ask for OTP. Okay, just click on Azure OpenAI. Click on create. Provide some resources. And click on create. So this is like, if you know that OpenAI is owned by Microsoft, so this is like a partnership. So through Azure, you can also create OpenAI resources and get the API keys. So I'm just doing the same thing. I'm opening OpenAI from Microsoft Azure. I created a resources and it will get, it will take some time to complete. So I already created one. Okay. It's called Project Explain. I don't know why I named that. So if you want to use any LLM, just go to a model deployments. Okay, click here, manage deployments. Now it will redirect to one more website. Okay, so if you go here, models, so you can see all the models available here. So you can select anyone and click on next and it will create a model for you. So I already created a model which is known as GPT 3.5 Turbo, which can support up to 15K tokens. That's why it's very popular. Okay, I already deployed for a long time. So we are going to use this one. So if you go to Azure back, so you need your APIs keys. If you go to the Azure resources, there you can find your APIs keys. Here, keys and endpoints. So here you can see the API, copy any one of the key. Okay, and when you create a deployment, you need to name it. So I wrote it like prompt answer GPT 3.5. Like I have named it much easier, I think so. Okay, so I named this weird name. I don't know why. Okay, you just name and then those keys. Okay, now you can create a small Python program. It's a very small. Okay, you need to install one package in Python known as OpenAI Python. Pip install OpenAI. Okay, and the funny part about this API, sorry, package is it's same for OpenAI as well as Azure. So you can put any of the keys. You can put the keys of OpenAI as well as Azure OpenAI. You just need to use Azure here. That's it. If you can see when I created a client, I just wrote Azure, and rest of it is like same. That's it. So this is a very small. So I just installed one package, pip install Azure OpenAI. So pip install OpenAI, and I just wrote a one simple program. Okay. So if you go through the program, there's import OS. We need to write that. Okay. In order to do some like I wrote all my credentials here. So this is my API keys. This is API version. So you update. You can update to the more latest version if you needed. Okay. And this is like my deployment name. You just create a one client Azure OpenAI, pass all the API keys, and also I passes the deployment name here. Here is the thing where you wrote a prompt. Okay. The way I created is not a conversational. It's like one prompt, one answer. Simple. Okay. Let's okay. So now you can fine tune the ML model. So I wrote a small prompt like I just want to do sentiment analysis. Okay. How many people have used sentiment analysis before? Okay. Have you used grammar correction app? Grammar correction, Grammarly, popular extension. You can create your own. Just write the prompt correct.
Pratik, can you zoom in?
That's just like one running. So just write a prompt like correct the grammar. I wrote the grammar spelling wrong. Okay. Correct the grammar for this sentence and pass the sentence. I don't much like code. Okay, that's it. Just wrote. So if you want to print the output, you need to just specify this. Now run the program. So you can see the output here. Can you see? So it's now grammar corrected. Now you can write any type of prompt. You can fine tune the model and you can make anything. That's what like most of the startups are doing right now. So they just got the access to the OpenAI API keys. And they wrote some pre-prompt. Okay. And then just like they fine tune the model to do only one specific task. Like for just example, like I'm using for grammar correction. I can use for sentiment analysis. I can use for content generation. I can use for anything. Like LinkedIn has that tag generator. Write a post on anything. Okay, I'll like write an email for anything. Like anything I can develop. I can also develop chatbots and anything. It's a very simple, small code, and you can create APIs or anything. That's it. Most of the companies are doing this. Like that's why these companies are called as AI wrappers, AI wrapper startups. Okay, so it's very simple. So if you want to explore more, you can explore. Okay. Okay. So there's like one question: how to get OpenAI credits for free? Okay. So there are multiple ways to get this for free. So I'm going to tell you two ways. Okay. If you directly go to the OpenAI website and sign up, you'll get $5 demo, and they will ask you credit card and all. Okay. There is one other way, like two other ways actually. The second way is create an account on Azure. You get $100 and you consume from here. No credit card required for a student, or you can use any student email ID. Okay, from there you can get like $100, like I guess $150. Sorry, $150. Okay, and you will be valid for 1 year, and you can use as much as you can. You can. They also have DALI and everything. Okay, this is a very good way, like workaround. The same thing. You just need to use OpenAI. Just write Azure in front of it. That's it. It will work with code as it is. Okay. The second method is known as Microsoft for Startups. You can Google this. Just go there, apply. Just say you are creating a startup. Okay, give some XYZ explanation. In 2 hours, it will be get approved, and you will get like up to $2,000 credits of Azure OpenAI credits. Simple. Nobody will tell you that. Inside news. Okay, so you can get the credits from one way or another and start using your like any GenAI products or like enhancing your products and everything. But remember, you need to write a good prompt. Okay, you need to be like good prompt. And if you want to learn how to get prompt, just ask ChatGPT how to write a prompt. Okay, that's it. So if you want to like connect with me, so you can again scan this QR code. And if you have any question, you can ask me.
Yeah. Give it a round of applause for Pratik first. Any questions on anything, please?
Nothing.
So this credits that you're talking about, are these for 3.5 or 4?
Any model.
Any model?
Any model.
I was sure.
Yes. If you want, I can show you right now. I have more than enough credits.
Yeah, we can talk on this. But in case if you want something simpler and if you want to use, like if you're just a front end guy like me, you can use something called Next.js library. It has like if you do npm AI, so AI is bought by Next.js now. So you have a template ready. Just add the prompt that you want in the template, and like within hardly 3 minutes, you can just generate a AI chatbot if you want to. But yeah, you can check out npm AI.
Okay.
Any questions on this?
So if you get any question at home, you can always message me on LinkedIn and I always reply, don't worry. Okay. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pratik, for the talk. I can see the faces. Everyone is like, "Khatam karo, ghar jana hai."
Exactly.
I understand. I know it's raining. The weather is super cool outside, but you don't know because you are in like AC right now. But I know what happens at night, right? Like it's like super hot. In case if you don't have AC in at your places, just like me. But any which ways. So with that, we came to the end of the wonderful meetup. Thank you everyone for taking out time to join our meetups. And we'll be ending this with two things. Okay, I'll show you what I meant. Okay. So we'll be taking a group photo and a group video. For a group video, what I'll be doing is how many of you have been to any concerts or any of those music shows, right? Awesome. So what does the artist who came there to perform do at the end, right? They take a selfie video. That's what I'm going to do. So if you liked or didn't like here, just hoot it for me for this video. So what we'll be doing is I'll be taking a video and you just give a shout out to anyone or just hoot it up. Okay. All right. I know this is something you call scripted, but it is what it is. Okay. So this is what I do on every meetup. If you don't know, just go to our Instagram page. So I put everything on our Instagram. All the photos, all the videos, everything will be on our Instagram. Just go to ReactPlay.io, search on Instagram, and just follow us. if you want to see more glimpse. And if you want to speak on ReactPlay meetups, we are super active on Twitter and Instagram. We'll be putting CFPs out. Our next meetup will be like in third or fourth week of May, if interested. If your company is interested in sponsoring the venue, just like GeekyAnts, please do reach out. And yeah, a big thanks to GeekyAnts and the entire team who just came on weekend to help us out. Give it a round of applause for all the beverages and all the support that they gave for this meetup. So yeah, I'll be taking a video now, and I hope you know what to do. All right. So I'm at the GeekyAnts office, and we are having React Play April meetup. And how was the meetup, guys? All right, thank you so much for this. And we'll be taking a group photo.